Mae means before and ato means after. And there are many different ways that you can apply mae and ato to your Japanese sentences. This lesson, we're just going to look at a few specific ways. So first, let's start with mae. So if you want to express that you did something before you did something else, or you're going to do something before you do something else, the basic formula is verb A in short present tense plus mae ni followed by verb B. That basically just means verb B before verb A. So note how in English we would put verb B first, the thing that's coming before we put first. In Japanese it's kind of flip-flop, so in English it makes more logical sense, like I do this verb before I do this verb. But in Japanese, it's like, before I do this verb, I do this verb. So it's a little bit backwards in Japanese. So verb A, note that must be in its plain present tense, but verb B can be in any number of tenses and it'll change up the meaning of your sentence. So I'm gonna plunge right into some examples here. Dekakeru mae ni doa ni kagiを掛けます. So this sentence might look familiar to you if you've been following this series because I used this model sentence a few lessons ago when I was talking about toki. So I'm just illustrating here that this is yet another way in which you can describe doing one thing before you do another thing. You might have remembered with toki, dekakeru toki, doa ni kagiを掛けます. It's like whenever I go out, I lock the door, and that implies, well, I lock the door before I go out. So as you can see here, it also works with mae ni. So this is more literally before I go out, I lock the door. Or I lock the door before I go out, or future tense, I'll lock the door before I go out. Here's a hopeful sentence. Shinu mae ni Doitsu ni ikitai na. So shinu is to die. So shinu mae ni is before I die. Doitsu ni ikitai na. So Doitsu is Germany. That comes from Deutsch. If you actually speak German, you know it's Deutsch in German. Deutschland. That'd be Germany. So Doitsu is sort of like Japanese-ish way of saying Deutsch. Ni ikitai na. So gee, I really want to go to Japan. Not to Japan. I would like to go to Japan again before I die, but it would also be cool to go to Germany again before I die. So I'd sure like to go to Germany before I die. 告白できる前に好きな先輩は卒業しました. So 告白, you probably know this as to confess. I think that is a horrible, horrible, horrible translation, and I hate how it has become so normalized in otaku culture. It should not be translated that way. You never talk about confessing. No, it's asking someone out or telling someone you like them. Anyway, before I could tell my senpai that I liked her, mae ni, before I could do that, 好きな senpai, the senpai I like, は卒業しました. She graduated. So 卒業する is to graduate. 卒業しました, she graduated. So before I could tell her I loved her, my senpai graduated. 寝る前に, so before I go to sleep or before you go to sleep. Who knows? No pronouns. 寝る前に宿題をしてください. So I'm not talking about me. Why would I be asking myself to do my homework? So I'm talking to you probably. Before you go to sleep, before you go to bed, 寝る前に宿題をしてください. Shukudai is homework. So 宿題をする is to do your homework. So 宿題をしてください. Please do your homework before you go to bed. Here's some song lyrics. This is like the first thing that came to mind before I thought of mae ni. I have to like resist the urge to sing. 愛だけを確かめたいもっと夜が明ける前に。愛だけが... No, I'm not going to sing it. Get a copyright strike. So 愛だけを... ai is love, agape love specifically. Dake is only. So 愛だけ is only love. Love and love alone. So 愛だけを... So this is our object. Something is going to happen to this I, this love. Tashikametai. So tashikameru is to make certain of something. Tashikametai then would mean I want to make certain of something. So literally, I want to make certain of your love for me. Probably. That's the implication there. Like if nothing else, ai dake, like only love, like if nothing else, that's one thing that I want to make certain of. Motto means more. Like I already kind of know you love me, but oh man, I if there's one thing I need, it's like more. I need to know more that you love me. Yoga akeru mae ni. So yo is yoru or night. So yoga akeru, that phrase means like for like the sun to rise, for day to break. Mae ni, so before the sun rises, before the day breaks. So before the day breaks, I need further reassurance that you love me, is kind of what that whole thing means. So also here's a fun thing that you can do with mae. This wasn't covered in Genki 2, but it's an extra little freebie for y'all watching. So you can add it after some suru verbs, minus the suru. You can like replace the suru with mae to express like pre something or another. I'll show you how that works. So kekkon suru, the verb to get married. If you nix the suru, it's just kekkon, which is marriage, a noun. But if you say Kekkon-mae, that means pre-marriage or before you're married. Here's another one, Ninshin. By itself, it's a noun, pregnancy. Ninshin suru is like to get pregnant or to be pregnant. Ninshin-mae would be before you get pregnant or pre-pregnancy. Benkyou suru, you already know that one, that's to study. Benkyou by itself is just study as a noun. But benkyou-mae would be like pre-study or like before a study session, before you study. Unten suru, you might remember that's driving. Unten by itself is just like driving as a noun, basically, the concept of driving. Unten mae then would be like pre-drive or before you start driving. You can also say like unten o suru mae or unten suru mae, but you don't even need the suru. It turns it into basically pre-something. So that's another cool thing you can do with mae. And there are so many other things that you can do with mae, but just remember that it literally just means before. And if you remember that it means before, you should be able to wrap your head around what the whole sentence means, even if it's in a form you haven't really seen it in before. Before. Now on to ato. So this was not covered in Genki 2, but I'm adding it here just because I think it's a logical like complement to mae. So ato means after. And we're going to look at two basic formulas, ways that you can use ato. So the first formula is verb A in plain past plus ato, followed up by verb B. So I'm putting a comma after ato here. Usually there would be a particle, either ni or de. It's a little, I don't want to trip you guys up with which particle to use there, especially since Japanese people often just don't use particles. So comma, just leave a little space in your speech or do a comma and you'll always be right. So what this means, this formula, verb A in plain past tense plus ato, comma, verb B, it means after verb A happened, verb B happened. So this is all past tense. Both of these verbs have to stay in past tense. Verb A must be plain past tense because it's not the end of a sentence. It's very weird to like have a polite masu form of a verb in the middle of a sentence. But verb B, like if you want to make this a polite sentence overall, you can make that in polite form or in plain form. So here's a sentence, 映画を見た後、寝ました. So this is a polite sentence because it ends with the mashita verb. So 映画を見た後, after I saw a movie, 寝ました, I went to bed. In English, we also might say I went to bed after I watched a movie. Logically, it does make more sense to be like I watched a movie and then, like after I watched a movie, then I went to bed, because then it's like chronologically the order in which you did these two activities. But just note that in English, we can swap it. 子猫たちと遊んだ後、買い物に行った. This is actually a true sentence. Today, it applied to me. So, 子猫たち is the kittens. と遊んだ後. So, 遊ぶ is to play. So, 子猫たちと遊ぶ is like to play with kittens. 子猫たちと遊んだ, like I played with kittens. 後, so after I played with kittens. 買い物に行った. I went shopping. Here are some song lyrics. This was, oh God, I was so obsessed with this song in high school. Like my junior year, I think, I listened to it literally every single day. Not hyperbole, like actually literally every single day I would listen to Nagareboshi o Matsu Shoujo. It's Urd's image song from Amegami-sama. Anyway, I'm gonna try hard not to sing it. Naki tsukareta ato. So there's the ato. Shoujo wa futto hiroi sora ni umi o kanjita. And already like my cadence is off because I'm thinking about the song lyrics. But anyway, naki tsukareru means to cry your eyes dry. Like you cry until you're exhausted. Because tsukareru is like to be tired. So naki tsukareta ato. So after I cried she cried her eyes out. Shoujo wa, the girl. Futo means like suddenly. Hiroi sora. So note that the kanji for sora is not sora. It is in fact uchu, which is the universe or the night sky in this case. So the broad night sky. Ni, so there's something in this broad night sky. Umi o kanjita. So umi is the sea or the ocean. Kanjita is like felt or sensed. So she felt or sensed the ocean in the big vast night sky that she suddenly looked up at after she cried her eyes dry. So better translation is after she cried her eyes out, the girl suddenly sensed the sea in the vast night sky. So the second common way that ato is used is in this formula. Ato de verb. And that's basically it. The verb will happen later. So ato de in this case is just later. It's just a stand-in. After what? Just after stuff. Later. So here's an extremely common phrase. Ato de rendaku shimasu. Or ato de rendaku itashimasu if you're being like super, super polite business Japanese. But rendaku suru or rendaku shimasu is to contact. I will contact you after. After what? Just after stuff. Later. Ato de. Bangohan wa ato de taberu yo. So bangohan wa, like as for dinner, ato de taberu yo, like, oh, I'll eat it later. For timestamps for all of the phrases we covered in this video, check the video description or the pinned comment of the comment section. And thank you to all of the patrons who support this series. For just $2 a month, you too can support the series and also receive some freebies. And I hope you'll tune in next week when we learn about transitive versus intransitive verbs. Ganbatte ne!